nice there.
Of course.
All right, I'm just going to check that mic.
Okay. Or had you where I used to be a teacher, so we haven't seen each other in years. This was a really nice
The system is falling apart. It really is. That's right. What system? There is no system. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. My cousin's yeah. 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 Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry to bother you. She sent me a list of these. I just want to confirm.
How do you like those boxes? That's like so 74, you know? Those are military.
That's what I was talking about.
They should last 40 years.
Down there.
I don't know. Check with them.
Is anybody saying that? No.
Totally just walked by. I'm sorry, I was zoning out a little bit. Sorry.
Kelly and Cordelia send their regards.
Thank you.
The singer's just waiting for us to start.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, could you please take your seats so that the services may begin? Thank you.
afternoon, friends. My name is Jan Phillips, and I am blessed to be included in this day because I love the McCray family. It's a Quaker belief that spirit puts just the right people in just the right room. It draws the right people together at just the right time. So I invite you to take this time to gaze at the wonder of each other and embrace hope. Hope makes up the shoes of the refugee. It's the galoshes that stamps out the puddle of doubt. I'm so sorry. It's how ironic, that was a quote from Germany. Hope makes up the shoes of the refugee. It's the galoshes that stamps out the puddles of doubt, and it is the strength that knocks out defeat, even if it takes 2 or 3 rounds. Together we gather and we honor Muti, who wove the human past to the human future. Today we celebrate Oma, because from her hope came the generations. The spirit of the refugee I know close up and personal. My mother-in-law was a refugee, also from Silesia. She showed me that hope has a twin, and that twin is courage. You are part of the hardy ancestry, either by blood or friendship. It's embedded in trust. And when you give your hand or your heart to another, when you give your love, when you lighten someone's day or receive the grace of another, you are part of that ancestry. A celebration of life is the holiest of holidays. It celebrates the personal and the profound power of love. So today, let us celebrate that which unites us, and that is Oma. Sandra.
That was beautiful. Really spectacular. Thank you so much. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. That was her signature greeting. When she came through the door, you would hear it, and you would know that Tana Gerda had arrived. It's how she always entered the house whenever we would get together. Excuse me. My sweet Tante Gerda. She was genuinely kind and caring to friends and strangers alike. She was thoughtful, giving, and selfless. She was patient. She was never wasteful, and she was truly grateful for everything that she had. Growing up, she was my mother's older sister. She's a woman that I both respected and admired. I may only have been a short part of her life, but she's been there for all of mine. Excuse me. And although we saw one another mainly on holidays, she's part of my earliest and fondest memories, and always will be. I'll always be grateful for her love, and I hold her in my heart forever. On behalf of my cousins Olivia and Willie and their children, my mother, her sister, we thank you for joining us to celebrate our Oma's life. My name is Sandra, and I'm her niece, her sister Sona's daughter. Please excuse me for just a second. I'm going to take this time. I would like to share with you a little bit about my Tana Gerda. Affectionately, you knew her as Oma, Tante Gerda was born in Schönwaldau, Germany in 1930. Schönwaldau translates to beautiful valley, and I know that's how she remembers it. She grew up on my grandfather's farm, where she learned to enjoy simple things, and she developed a true appreciation for nature. As a teenager, she witnessed and lived through the horrors of World War II. The family was forced to leave their farm. They were all separated and lived as refugees. These memories, they burdened her. They were horrific and tragic, and we rarely spoke of them. But later in life, she did write many of them down in her memoir. But at 21, Gerda emigrated to the United States, and she arrived on cold Christmas morning in New York Harbor. She came by boat. She was really fortunate to be sponsored by her father's sister, Tante Letta, and Uncle Rudy. I can only imagine what it must have been like for her. She recalls in her memoir, I'll read to you, "I began to think about how I was going to greet Tante and Uncle and Rudy Jr. Was I going to shake hands? Would I hug them or even kiss them? We were not a kissy-kissy family. This worried me quite a bit because I really did not know them. But they took care of that when we landed. They hugged and kissed me, and that was that. I disembarked and we took the Weehawken ferry to Cliffside Park, and that was to become her home until she was married." She writes, "That Christmas Eve night was like a dream. I was so tired and happy. It's hard to explain. This was my first day in America. It took 3.5 years for this visa to be granted. It was the beginning of a good time for me. I was never sorry that I came. Just like spring follows winter, a new life could begin. Her two sisters, Sona and my Tante Karen, followed in her footsteps. Her family and our family was reborn. They were full of hopes and dreams, not just for a new home, but for a place they could actually call home. She started to work as a nanny for a family in Fort Lee. On her first day, family offered her lunch and a beer. Tante Gerda didn't drink alcohol, and she didn't like beer, and they were relieved, but they couldn't believe that a German didn't like beer. She spoke little English, so she enrolled in an evening school in Hackensack at a high school for English. Class was for English and citizenship. And there he was, standing by the fence and smoking. She spotted the one who would become the love of her life, my Uncle Mario. One Sunday evening, she and her friend Gerda went to a dance at Schutzen Park in North Bergen. Mario was there, and he asked her to dance. She loved to dance. Mario was Italian. He lived with his brother and family in Hackensack, and he too had recently immigrated to America. The rest of that story is theirs, but they married in 1958. They made a great pair. I always loved the way they interacted with one another. They were very playful. Oma will be remembered for many things. I'd like to back up. I remember specifically how they would interact with one another when they hosted Thanksgiving. They were very playful together. They had this little magic about them. And my Oma will be remembered for many things, but her gravy is what's going to go down in history. And yours. They had 2 beautiful children. They saved their money, and they bought a house in Bogota. They moved in on the day that Olivia was born, if you can imagine that. By all measures, they were living the American dream. Oma was really proud to be an American. As a German American, she attended the annual Student Day parade in New York City until she wasn't able to travel anymore. And then she watched it on TV. She loved music, all kinds of music, German, classical opera, but especially American folk music. She was a great fan of Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Judy Collins, John Denver. When she was 80 years old, she went to see Pete Seeger's 90th birthday concert in Madison Square Garden to see all the folk legends. She loved her garden. She and my uncle were very passionate about their garden. They planted vegetable trees and fruit trees, apricots, plums, cherries, blueberries, you name it, raspberries, gooseberries. It's no wonder she had so many woodchucks in that yard. Still there. And their passion was contagious. I remember my father planting 2 cherry trees in our yard and then consulting Uncle Mario. And then he was out in the backyard with Q-tips trying to pollinate them. We teased him for that because we never got any cherries. They had grapevines which would grow into canopies over the garden walks in the backyard, and Uncle Mario would make wine. As a child, the backyard was very magical to me also. One could say that Oma was an environmentalist also. She always opted to walk instead of drive when possible. She used reusable net bags to shop with. She recycled newspapers, composted her vegetable scraps, and had rain barrels attached to the house gutters to reuse the rainwater. Once during water restriction, a police officer rang the bell and asked her to shut off the hose that was watering her lawn. She showed them that hose wasn't attached to a faucet, see, but rather it was draining the bath from her tub. She loved to take baths. He made her remove that anyway. Once she no longer tended to her garden, she gave me one of those rain barrels, and it's collecting rain today from the roof of my garage. But nothing gave Oma greater pleasure than seeing her children grow and have children of their own. They truly are the pride and joy of her life. Today you wear the dress you wore at Olivia's wedding. I remember how beautiful you looked that day. You wore it so well. You were so proud and beaming with happiness. My fondest memories of my Tante Gerda are from childhood holidays spent with our families. We lived on Long Island, so this is when we mostly got to see one another, excuse me. I always loved going to the Matkovich's house. There were so many exciting things there. In addition to the garden, by the way, it took up the entire backyard. There was a brook and a train. It was a freight train line, so it didn't come by that often. But Tante Gerda knew how much we loved it, and it amused us. And if it was coming, she would bring us to the window so we could count the cars. And then there was the garage, which was full of relics. We all wanted to get into that garage, but we were not allowed. It was disposable to the generation, and everything could be repurposed, and if it could be, it would be. Funny thing, this week, after speaking with you, I Googled Gerda Matkovich to pull up her obituary, and an image popped up, and it was Tante Gerda. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it was like under images in the news, and it was the Pagoda blog, and tons of images and image for the Pagoda blog at a garage sale, looking at a basket. She loved the garage sale. But it was the small things that made her extra sweet. She was the kind of aunt who never missed a birthday, ever. She always sent a card with this little sweet sentiment letting you know she was thinking of you. She was thoughtful and had a way of making you feel special. I remember as a child, I was crazy about horses, and one Christmas she gave me a book, the Encyclopedia of a Horse. I think I was 10 maybe, but I remember opening that present. I was so touched. I thought, how does she know I love horses? Because we never really didn't spend day to day together. I realize now that my mother told her that, but I love that book and I still have it on my shelf today. I feel fortunate to have been able to sit with her in these last couple of days, holding her hand. She was comfortable. She was surrounded by her family. I believe she was at peace, and she had a really beautiful passing. Oma, your life beautifully reflects the goodness of this world. You were a blessing to those around you, not only your family, but everyone who was lucky enough to know you. You hold a place in my heart that no one could ever fill. For all you've done and for all you are, it's an honor to have had you as my aunt and to celebrate your life today.
Every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow makes you bloom and grow, bloom and grow forever. Angel voice, bless my homeland forever. Angel voice, every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow make you bloom and grow, bloom and grow forever. Angel voice, bless my homeland forever.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I've had the honor and pleasure of being a close friend of the McCrae family and, of course, of Oma since Nicholas and Stephen were born, and Emily and Christina, Emily, my daughter, and Christina became quick best friends in their nursery school class. And, of course, the minute you know the McCraes, you got to know Oma. She was there in good times, like when the boys were born, and at every celebration, and at every holiday, and she was there when times were hard. She was their steadfast cheerleader and their steadfast support. And she was an Oma to all who knew her. I want to share a passage that growing up in a religious home, I heard a lot. I know many of you know that probably in part because of what Oma witnessed in her life. She was not a religious person, and yet I can think of nobody that this passage embodies more than Oma. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not jealous. Love does not brag. Love is not proud. Love is not rude. It does not seek the best for itself. Love is not easily angered, and it does not keep a record of wrongs. Love does not rejoice when evil is done, but only with the truth. Love always protects others. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. Love always perseveres. Love never fails. And later, it is said that love with only words is not true love, but love is to be shown in action and in truth. And again, nobody showed love in action and in truth to her family and to anyone who knew her more than Oma. Other people who are close to Oma, her family and friends, will share stories now that embody exactly that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick. I'm Oma's grandson. Greetings, hello, guten Tag. Looking around here today, it's heartwarming to see the faces of individuals who were so special to my Oma, my grandmother. It means the world that you are all here today. It goes without saying, but Oma was a very special figure in my life and in all of our lives. She wore so many different hats. She was, among other things you've heard today, a historian, a storyteller, an amazing cook, a gardener, and on occasion a comic. We will get there. Words cannot even begin to explain the closeness that I felt with my grandmother, but I'm going to try. I have so many fond memories of our times together, many more than I could possibly explain today. I loved having sleepovers at her house in Gerda. She would make potato pancakes, and she would take me to an all-you-can-eat buffet that has since been closed down, I think, for health code violations. But it was really good. She would take me shopping. Once we spent about 4 hours in an international food market together, I think trying to buy something she wasn't allowed to eat. And she was not a big movie person, but she watched all of Ratatouille with me in disgust. And you should have seen her during the scene where the rats stormed the kitchen. It was really something to see. Every Christmas Eve we went to her house. She'd cook an incredible meal. We'd read the night before Christmas and hear sleigh bells outside, and we'd get some of our gifts early. In the last few years, whenever I was home, we made a habit of watching Jeopardy at 7 p.m. She was always better than me, and that's okay. It was always followed by Wheel of Fortune. My grandmother's a very candid woman, and when Vanna White would walk out, she would go, "She doesn't eat." You have heard and will continue to hear that my grandmother was an avid gardener. And Sandra, you jumped the gun on me a little bit, but you should also know she was public enemy #1 of all woodchucks near and far. I will not personally confirm or deny the validity of any of the following statements, but it has been said, in order of severity, that she would use rancid but natural substances throughout her yard to scare them away. Didn't work. She tried. She once set off a smoke bomb on one end of their tunnel, thinking it would scare them out the other side and they would not come back. And that she potentially owned a pellet gun that she would shoot from her porch. Again, you decide if those are true. 2 pellet guns. You can't just have one. Oma was a fantastic role model to grow up with, aside from the woodchuck shenanigans. And for a lot of different reasons. You've heard she was extremely caring. She was not rich by any means, but was always making donations to various causes, sometimes ones that probably were not very worthy of her money. She would drive neighbors to doctor appointments when she was older herself, and for a period in time she stepped in as my and Christina's main parental figure during a very challenging time in their lives. She was so supportive of all of us and of me in everything that I did. She loved coming to see me in shows. She loved watching and looking at my photography and hearing about my travel. October of last year, I had the bright idea that I wanted to go to Egypt. I decided to come downstairs and tell my family. My mom was sitting at the table and Oma was there as well. It was a little bit underhanded because I had already bought in a non-refundable ticket. But I come downstairs and I told my mom what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and she was concerned. She said, "You probably shouldn't go there. It's dangerous. Why would you do that?" And before I could say anything, unsolicited but breaking the tension, I heard from the other side of the room, "Oh, you know, the pyramids, the Nile, they make great furniture there." But my favorite personal thing about my Oma is that she was extremely honest and extremely candid. She would tell anybody her life story, she would tell anybody our life stories, and she could not tell a lie. If I ever said something egotistical, she would call me an Eingebilgefatska. Yeah, it translates to conceited fool. She meant it nicely. If we complained about something silly, like the house being too cold, and I'm going to do my best impression here because the delivery is important, she would go, "You don't know what cold is." Emphasis on the is every single time. And most recently, I'm sorry, Mom, for this story. Most recently, during her 92nd birthday, 5 months ago, my mom prepared this lovely mushroom soup for my grandmother because there was not much that she could eat at that point. I enjoyed it. My mom asked if she did. She did not. And my mom goes, and replied, "Good thing my birthday comes once a year." Many of you know, and some of you might not, but Christina, Stephen, and I didn't really have the benefit of having multiple grandparent figures in our lives. Oma took the great task of providing the love, support, and wisdom that many people receive from several different individuals. And I think if one thing brings chat and so much more. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else to share?
Hi, my name is Doreen, and I have known Oma for over 40 years. At first, I just knew her as my friend's mom, back when she was Mrs. Matkovich before she became Oma. And I recall that she was always exceedingly polite on the phone. Whenever I would call and Olivia wasn't home, Oma would always, after several minutes of chit-chat, she would end the conversation with, "Until what time can she call you back?" I always wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be inconvenienced. Another thing I always recall about her was her trademark sensible walking sneakers, jeans, and of course her very charming accent. I got to know Oma a much more once Olivia and I were older, and Oma spent a lot more time in Glen Rock helping to babysit the kids, her grandkids, and bringing over dinner, including her famous meat sauce. But it wasn't until I helped Oma by typing up her memoirs that I truly got to know her and her history. Oma belonged to a writing club for a number of years where she wrote and shared her memories of growing up in Germany during and after World War II and her years as a refugee and finally her life in America. We spent countless hours together over a couple of years working on this project. I felt honored to be a part of putting her incredible life story into a completed form for others to enjoy. Oma was just a joy to be around, always with an interesting story to share. And we had a lot of fun when she would come over my house or when we would have lunch with Olivia, and often Christina would join us. And I think you saw it in some of the slideshow pictures, whether it be at venues with the New York City backdrop or at a beer garden. And I was always amazed at, even when she was older, at her voracious appetite. At times I felt like we were partners in crime. Sometimes we'd go to the McCrae house, where Olivia would always try to be very cognizant of her diabetes and her salt intolerance, and I would slip French fries under the table and hide a brownie in my pocket and sneak it to her in the living room. And I think she also always appreciated, and I always kind of suspected that Olivia was on to us. One of my favorite memories of Oma is when she came to my house a couple of summers ago so we could all enjoy viewing of the partial eclipse, which was kind of a non-event in this area, but we really made it a special occasion. Everything always seemed so much more fun when Oma was with us. She was one of a kind, and I will miss her tremendously. Is there anybody else who'd like to come up and share any stories of Oma? Christina, did you want me to read this?
Is this the time?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
When Oma was just a couple of years old, there was struggle of and that he was after he learned being an old and now move and be happier. Your house. Alabaster. To catch the butter. German fairies. And happy eyes smile.
Around the corner. Are doing so did for her size. Quando sta e non me tra i tuoi a te vi te canas poco poco che non che
Come
last reflection.